You don't belong on this mat." He said it loud enough for the whole gym to hear. Not low, not muttered under his breath, the way people sometimes say cruel things when they want plausible deniability. He said it the way a man says something when he wants an audience. Kwame Asante was standing in the center of the training floor at Northgate Mixed Martial Arts, a converted warehouse in the East End of Hamilton, Ontario, where the winters come hard and the ceiling fans do nothing. He had a black belt wrapped twice around a waist that had not seen a real fight in 11 years. He ran the Thursday evening open sessions. He had a poster of himself on the wall from a regional tournament in 2009. The woman he was talking to was named Zola Brennan. She was 29. She had walked in that evening with a membership card she'd bought online, wearing gray sweatpants and a long-sleeved thermal undershirt despite the heat, because she always wore long sleeves, everywhere, always. She had a water bottle that was cracked along the base and sealed with electrical tape. She had not spoken to anyone yet. She stood very still when Kwame said it, not frozen, not embarrassed, just still. The way a person goes still when they have heard something like that before and their body has learned not to flinch at it anymore. "Open mat is open mat," she said. "I paid the same as everyone else." Kwame smiled. It was the smile of a man who had mistaken patience for weakness his entire life. "Sure," he said, "but open mat isn't babysitting. You'll get hurt. You'll slow people down. You don't have the build for this." Someone laughed near the back. Not everyone, not even most of them. But one person laughed, and that was enough for Kwame to keep going. "What's your background? Yoga? Zumba?" She looked at him for a moment. "I'm here to train," she said. "I can see that. I'm trying to save you some embarrassment." He gestured around the room. "These guys have been at it for years. Some of them compete. You walk in here with your mall shoes and your water bottle and... Look, there's a beginner circuit at the rec center on Barton. That might be more your speed." He said it gently, which was the worst part. He had perfected the tone of a man who believes he is doing you a favor while he is cutting you down. Zola picked up her bag. For one moment, Kwame looked satisfied. She set it back down. "I'll stay," she said. What Kwame did not know, what no one in that room knew, because she had not told anyone, and she never told anyone on the first day, was that Zola Brennan had spent the previous 6 years working as a close protection officer for a private security firm contracted to the federal government. She had done convoy escorts in 3 provinces and 1 international posting. Before that, she had done 2 years with the Canadian Forces Reserve Unit, training stream that fed into tactical operations. Before that, she had grown up in a neighborhood in Winnipeg's North End where learning how to move in a fight was not optional. It was the difference between going home and not going home. She had a physiotherapy card in her wallet that she visited every other Thursday for the nerve damage in her left shoulder. Sustained during an incident she was legally prohibited from discussing in detail. The long sleeves were not fashion. The long sleeves were because the scarring on her forearms, road rash and 1 burn and one that was something else entirely, made strangers uncomfortable, and she had grown tired of answering their questions. She did not tell people these things. She did not feel she owed people these things. She just wanted to train. She had moved to Hamilton 3 months ago for a contract that had since been extended. She had found Northgate on a Google Map search at 11 o'clock at night when she couldn't sleep. The Thursday open mat was the one evening her schedule allowed. That was the sum total of the situation. Kwame paired her with a 19-year-old named Felix, who had been training for 8 months, and who had the particular confidence of someone who has learned just enough to think they know everything. Felix was a good kid, actually. He looked apologetic when Kwame assigned him to her. He clearly did not want to be part of whatever demonstration Kwame was engineering. "We'll just go light," Felix told her quietly. "Sure," she said. They started standing. Felix moved well. He had decent footwork and a habit of telegraphing his right side that he probably wasn't aware of. Zola moved in a way that looked, to anyone watching, almost lazy. Weight low, hands relaxed, nothing wasted. She let him come forward twice. She redirected both times without making it obvious that she was redirecting. Felix blinked. On the third exchange, Kwame was watching and called out from the side, "Come on, Felix. She's not going to break." What Kwame meant was, stop being gentle with her. Show her what real training looks like. Prove my point. Felix obliged. He shot forward with a double-leg takedown, the move he was most confident in. He did not complete it. Zola's left arm came down and across in a motion that looked almost casual, a redirect and a sprawl together, and in the same breath she had his back and both his arms were compromised and he was on the ground. She held it for exactly 2 seconds, enough for anyone watching to understand what had happened, and then she let go and stepped back. Felix lay on the mat for a moment. He started laughing. "Okay," he said. Okay, yeah." Kwame's expression did not change immediately. That was the tell. If he'd been a reasonable man, something would have shifted in his face right then. Some acknowledgement, some adjustment. Instead, he looked the way people look when they are trying to decide which version of the story to believe. "Beginner's luck," he said. Zola said nothing. She came back the following Thursday. Kwame was there again. He did not acknowledge her when she walked in. He made a point of not acknowledging her, which is its own kind of statement. She warmed up in the corner. She stretched out her left shoulder carefully, the way she always did. 3 rotations and a specific pull that her physiotherapist had showed her. She pulled her sleeves down after. She found a space on the mat and waited. A man named Cole Rupert came over. He was maybe 35 heavyset, had been training at Northgate for 4 years. He had a reputation for going harder than necessary with newer people. He had seen what happened with Felix the week before. "Want to roll," he said. She looked at him. She had read him in about 4 seconds. The way he was standing, weight already forward, the look he had that men sometimes get when they believe they have something to prove. "Sure," she said. Cole started fast. That was his strategy. Go fast early, establish the tempo, make the other person react. He was strong, genuinely strong, and he had decent technique in the clinch. Zola moved like she was bored. Not showboating, not performing. She moved the way someone moves when they have been in enough real situations that the adrenaline no longer floods their system the same way it does for everyone else. Her breathing stayed even. She slipped 2 of his grips without appearing to try. When he managed to take her down, and he did once because she let him, partly because she was gauging, she was back to her feet in a time that made him visibly confused. He came in again, harder this time. She let him close the distance, and then did something with her hips and her right foot together, and he went down with a sound like a man who has just discovered something about physics that he wishes he hadn't. He was fine. It was not a brutal takedown, but it was complete. He lay on the mat looking at the ceiling, and she stood beside him with her hands at her sides. The room had gotten quiet. Kwame walked over. He stood above Cole and then looked at Zola. "Where'd you learn that?" he said. It was not a compliment. It was a challenge, as if the only way to explain what had just happened was that she had somehow cheated. She looked at him steadily. "I've been around," she said. "That's not an answer. You didn't ask me a real question." Someone near the back made a sound. Not a laugh, exactly. More the sound of acknowledgement. Kwame's jaw moved. He looked around the room once, the instinctive move of a man checking whether his audience is still with him. He looked at Cole, who was sitting up now, and Cole looked at him with an expression that said, "Don't look at me. We do things a certain way here." Kwame said. "I know," Zola said. "I've been watching. This isn't a show. I know that too." He stepped closer. Not threatening, technically, but close enough that it was supposed to feel like something. "I've been running this gym for 9 years, he said. "I know what I'm looking at." She held his gaze without blinking. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he repeated, like the word meant something different when he said it. She picked up her water bottle. The electrical tape on the crack caught the light. "Same time next week?" she said. She was asking the room, not him. And the room, quietly, in the way rooms answer things, answered yes. The 3rd Thursday was different. She arrived to find a different energy in the building. Someone had told someone who had told someone else. There were a few people there who didn't usually come to the Thursday session. One of them was a woman named Blythe, who trained at a different gym across town and had apparently heard something through a mutual contact. She was watching when Zola walked in. Kwame was there, but quieter. He had spent a week with whatever version of events he'd decided to tell himself. He had landed on something like, she got lucky twice. The guys weren't going full. It didn't count. He had also, because he could not help himself, started talking. Not loudly, just to the people around him, in the particular register of a man who needs to reestablish a narrative before it gets away from him. He'd said something about how people could have good reflexes without having any real training. He'd said something about how a gym like this needed standards. He'd said her name in a tone of voice that made it clear he didn't mean it neutrally. One of the newer members, a young man named Thies, who'd been training for 3 weeks and who was still deciding what kind of person he wanted to be in spaces like this, heard Kwame say it and asked, "What's her deal?" "She's got a chip on her shoulder," Kwame said. "Comes in here trying to prove something." Thies nodded, not because he agreed, but because he was new and didn't know yet that nodding is a kind of agreement. Zola walked in at 7:15. She didn't look at Kwame. She went to her corner. She stretched her shoulder. She pulled her sleeves down. And then Kwame made the mistake. He walked over to her while she was still warming up, and he said, loudly, deliberately, in a voice that carried, "I've been thinking. This level of class isn't really suited to someone without formal credentials. I'm going to have to ask you to train with the white belts." She looked up at him. "I don't have a belt," she said. "Exactly my point." She stood up. She was shorter than him by perhaps 4 inches. He had about 60 pounds on her. He was counting on both of those things. "You want me to demonstrate credentials," she said. "I want you to respect the structure of this gym." "I have been respectful," she said. "Every time I've come in here, rolling with my intermediate students and making them look bad is not respectful. Making someone look bad and being better than them are 2 different things." The room was listening. Everyone was listening. The air in the converted warehouse felt different. Heavier, like the air before a storm in a flat landscape, when you can see it coming from miles out. Kwame looked around the room once, and then he said it. The thing he'd been building to for 3 weeks. The thing he said because he'd been in charge of this room for 9 years, and he believed that being in charge of a room was the same thing as being right. "You know what your problem is?" he said. "People like you always come in thinking you've got something to prove, showing off, taking up space that belongs to people who've put in the work. But you don't have a record. You don't have credentials. You don't have anything except attitude." He looked at her left arm, at the sleeves pulled down to her wrist. "And whatever story you're hiding under there," he said. The room went completely silent. Zola looked down at her arm. Then she looked up at him, and she did something no one expected. She pushed the left sleeve up to her elbow. The scarring ran from just above her wrist to below the elbow joint. Not uniform. 3 different kinds of damage from 3 different things, old enough to be silver-white in the fluorescent light. On the inside of her forearm, almost invisible in among the scar tissue, was a small tattoo, the insignia of a reserve unit, 6 years faded. She didn't say anything. She just held his gaze. Kwame looked at her arm. His expression did something complicated. He had not expected this. He had expected her to deflect or to flinch or to be ashamed. She was none of those things. "I'm not hiding anything," she said. "You just never asked." Blythe, the woman who trained across town and had come to see what the talk was about, stepped forward from the side of the room. "I know who you are," Blythe said. "You worked with the Meridian Group. I saw you at the Pacific Rim Security Conference in 2022. You were the one who did the demonstration." Zola looked at her. "Yeah," she said. "You were contracted to the Privy Council office. Some of that's not public. I know. I'm saying I know." Blythe paused. "She was one of 12 people in the country certified at that level," she told the room. "I know because I tried to get certified, and I washed out in month 4. The room absorbed this." Cole, still nursing the bruise on his dignity from the week before, exhaled through his nose. Felix looked at the mat. Thies, the new kid, looked like someone had told him something true and important about the way the world worked, and he was going to need a minute. Kwame stood in the center of the room. His face had a quality that faces have sometimes when a man realizes, slowly and undeniably, that he has been wrong. Not in a minor way, not in a fixable way, but in the specific way where everything he said in the past 3 weeks now rearranges itself in his memory and looks different than it did before. He looked at Zola's arm. He looked at her face. "I didn't know," he said. "I know you didn't," she said. "That doesn't." He stopped, started again. "I said some things that were out of line." "Yeah," she said. "You did." He waited, the way people wait when they think an apology will be met with absolution, when they think admitting fault is the end of the conversation rather than just the beginning of it. She pushed her sleeve back down. "I'm going to keep coming on Thursdays," she said, "because open mat is open mat, and I paid the same as everyone else." She picked up her water bottle. "And next time someone walks in here," she said, "maybe just let them train." She said it without heat, without the satisfaction of someone who has won something. She said it the way a person says a true thing when they have been saying it their whole life and are tired of having to say it at all. The video got posted by Thies, who had his phone out. He had not intended to post it. He had intended to keep it for himself, to watch it later when he needed to remember something. But he showed it to a friend, who showed it to someone else, and within a week it had made its way through the Hamilton training community and then beyond it. The moment that kept getting shared was not the takedown, it was the sleeve. Zola pushing her left sleeve up to her elbow under the fluorescent light in a gym that smelled like rubber and old chalk, and holding Kwame's gaze without blinking. The comments were not all kind. Some people said things about Kwame that went further than was necessary. Some people made it about things it was only partly about. The internet is what it is. But the ones that meant something, the ones that stayed, were from people who wrote things like, "I have scars I hide too, and I never thought about it this way before." People who wrote, "She didn't owe him her story. She told it anyway, on her terms." People who wrote only, "I needed to see this today." Blythe shared it with 2 words, "She stayed." That was the part no one talked about enough. Not the technique, not the credentials, not the unit insignia on her arm. The part that mattered was that she picked up her bag, and then she set it back down. Because she had come to train. Because she had paid the same as everyone else. Because she knew who she was, and she had decided that who she was allowed to take up space in a room. Even when a room told her otherwise, there are people who shout, and people who stay quiet, and people who perform their authority in front of an audience. Because somewhere underneath all of that, they are afraid that without the performance, there is nothing there. And then there are people who have been through enough that the performance stopped scaring them a long time ago. They are not always who you think they are when they first walk in. They are not always wearing what you expect. Sometimes they are wearing long sleeves on a warm evening in a gym in Hamilton, and a cracked water bottle held together with electrical tape, and a patience that has been tested in situations you have not been tested in, and will never be tested in. And that patience looks, to people who mistake stillness for weakness, like nothing at all, until it doesn't.